Hey everybody, welcome back to Tommy's Tesla Tech and Travel. This is another comic book edition. I decided to take the opportunity to talk about a legend that was Stan Lee. We just would have recently had his 100th birthday on December 28th of 2022, but unfortunately lost him about 5 years ago. The reason I want to take the time to talk about him is whether you liked him or not, I mean, everyone kind of knew who Stan Lee was, like even your grandma knew who Stan Lee was. He is really responsible for the comic book era that we all knew, loved, and was basically become the epicenter of pop culture this last 20 years. I remember growing up at one point, liking comics wasn't necessarily cool. And I've always had I always had feelings for comics. I've always loved comics. And I really came into my own circa 2008, 2009 with my comic book collecting prowess, if you will. And I've been lucky enough in my life to have met Stan Lee a couple times. The first one you'll probably see right over here. It's when I met him at Amazing Arizona Comic Con a number of years ago. And he was just super nice. We had a nice little conversation in the time it took for him to sign one of my books. And I'll never forget it because now I look back, I'm like, wow, it was kind of dumb. Because he says, Thomas, it was great to meet you. I'm like, oh my God, Stan Lee knew my name. How did he know my name? I forgot I was wearing a badge that said my name on it because I was on the VIP line. And in that opportunity, I actually got him to sign a book for me. And I didn't really have a whole lot by Stan Lee at that point, especially the vintage comics. I was a broke college kid. I didn't have money to spend on some of these collectible comics that I have now. And I remember going to a booth, a guy named Ed Robertson, who goes from convention to convention selling some vintage comics at really decent prices. Wasn't the best condition, and I asked him, hey, if you could get Stan Lee to sign a book, what would it be? And he, without hesitation, said, well, I would definitely have him sign a Fantastic Four book, because that was always his favorite story and favorite characters to write, which turned out to be true. In every interview I've ever seen with Stan Lee, he talked about, he's about to get out of comics and writing until his wife convinced him, his wife Joan, said, you should really write something that you want to write about, something that you are passionate about. So he created the Fantastic Four, and that came out in November with their first issue, and my birthday is also in November. So I was like, I'm going to get him to sign a Fantastic Four book, but I couldn't afford, any of these number ones, number twos, any of that. So I ended up getting this one really cheap from Mr. Robertson's booth, and sure enough, got Stan Lee to sign it right there. And this is before, I didn't know anything about grading or any of that. I didn't care. I just wanted to meet the man and have something to really, commemorate him with. And the years later with CBCS, they did the verified signature auction. So yeah, this book's not leaving my personal collection. It's always going to mean a lot to me the time I got to meet Stan Lee. Great weekend hanging out with my friends. We met a living legend at the time, and he said my name. So this book is going to stay in my PC for quite a while. And I personally have zero problems paying for a lot of the OG creators, if you will, their signatures, because when they were actually alive and these books weren't hits, but we all knew who they were all pay for hire or work for hire. They really didn't make the money that we associate with something on this level, creative-wise. I mean, now if you write a mildly successful comic, you can get an option as a TV show, a movie, and you're doing all right. Back then, these guys really made no money, so I have zero problem paying for the vintage signatures at this point in my life. That being said, I want to give credit where credit's due. I mean, Stan Lee really came up in some capacity or another. Maybe he didn't fully create, but he was partially or mostly responsible for the creation of most characters. I mean, right now I'm wearing a Sam Wilson shirt that I got for Christmas, and he created the Falcon. Stan Lee was one of those guys that was not afraid to think out of the box when it came to characters, ethnicities, backgrounds, histories. So, I mean, what greater compliment to Captain America than, the Falcon, an African-American superhero in an era where African-American representation was not as, implicit as it is today. This was a monumental character, in my opinion. Have I ever been the biggest Falcon fan? As a character, no. But what the character stood for and what he meant, I think, is almost unmatchable. And that's why I wanted to make sure I had this one in my collection. Was the first appearance of the Falcon, story by Stan Lee. I think it's a pivotal book and character in complete comics history and lore. And I actually really like what Anthony Mackie's done with the character in the MCU. But I would be lying if I said the Falcon was a favorite character of mine as far as the comic book characters go. But it's part of Cap, and Cap's my guy, right? Speaking of Cap, even though he was created by Jack Kirby and, oh my gosh, Joe Simon. I don't know why I blanked for a second. I always think of Captain America not in the 1940s, punching Hitler face, but in the Captain America post-Avengers 4 era. So Captain America 100, a book I've shown on this channel before. This for a long time was like my grail. To me, this is Captain America #1 because I'll never afford an actual Captain America #1. But again, story by Stan Lee. And this actually gave birth to my other favorite character in comic books history when it comes to Marvel. This guy right here, which is Black Panther. We're talking about representation of African American heroes. Who's better? That sounded bad. Who's better than Black Panther? I mean, he was, to me, Marvel's answer to Batman. He's rich. He's everything we want out of a superhero, as well as being like, a political diplomat across the chain. And he was part of Stan Lee's favorite characters to write in Fantastic Four. So, I mean, if you're talking about collection, you have to have Fantastic Four 52, the first appearance of Black Panther. Story by Stan Lee. These books are like my holy grails, especially when it comes to Stan Lee's work. So, being that the man just would have celebrated his 100th birthday this year, well, this past year, we're now in January. Sorry, I was extremely busy during the holiday season. I thought it was important to take the time to talk about like a milestone. Disney turns 100, Stan Lee turns 100. Coincidence? No. But these two are big things that are part of my life and things that we cover right here on this channel. So, thanks for checking it out. I know it's kind of a short video. So I want to pay homage to the man, the myth, the legend, Stan Lee, and talk about a little bit of my favorite books that he's created. So, if you haven't done so, please drop a like down below. Maybe comment with your favorite Stan Lee book or Stan Lee character. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel. Hopefully, I have some more trips coming up. We're going to have some more in-depth videos. But right now, playing catch-up from the holiday season. Well, thanks for tuning in. Hope we take another ride soon. Good talking to you guys.